And then finally, we have Dr. William Lane Craig to join us here on Crazy Corner because he is talking about some kind of crazy shit. So there's this idea that the coronavirus escaped from a lab in Wuhan, China. Mm-hmm. Now, we've known for some time that this virus has not been lab created. That's been something that we've known for a while.
Yeah, they've mapped the genome. They know that it is a naturally occurring virus.
Right. The question that's really kind of being pondered right now is whether or not a lab had it and then it somehow got out. Mm-hmm. And so that this strain originated in a lab.
Yeah, they're trying to figure out where it originated, how did it happen is what they're trying to figure out, which makes sense. I mean, we should be trying to figure that out.
Right. But there's no reason to speculate with, trying to sound like you're more sure about the situation than you really are.
Well, I told you there was the guy who sits across from me at work.
Oh, yeah.
Who was talking about this in February and was saying that it was lab created and released from the lab in Wuhan. And it's because that one crazy ass motherfucker got on Fox News and said it the Sunday prior. What was his? I forget.
Jerry Falwell Jr.?
I don't know.
He said it.
Somebody got on Fox News and said it, and I can't remember who it was. It might have been Falwell. And said that. And then it started rolling from there. And of course, everybody who watches Fox News religiously is dumb as fuck.
Right.
And has no ability to think for themselves. And so he started spouting that shit at work. And I was like, no. Now they have have investigated whether or not this virus did come from that lab. Because there are two infectious disease labs in Wuhan.
Right.
And investigating that is perfectly fine. And I think they should do that. But do we want to go ahead and watch?
Yeah, let's go ahead and watch what William Lane Craig says. And then we'll go and touch on the science behind why he's wrong.
I must confess, Bill, I'm not as familiar as you appear to be with this suggestion that it may have been a laboratory that was responsible for the outbreak in the first instance. So just for my benefit as much as anything, what's the information that you've been...
Well, this is what we're hearing in the news here in the States these days, that it seems, and of course this isn't certain, it seems probable that the virus was the result of mishandling of experimental viruses or diseases by a laboratory worker in Wuhan who became infected unknown to himself, took it home to his girlfriend, infected her, and thence it spread, and now has affected the entire world. It's really stunning if this isn't.
As opposed to the prevailing theory that I'd understood, which is this transfer from bats to humans through potentially unhygienic conditions in a Wuhan market. But I suppose we will wait to see exactly what the source was.
This all needs to be settled out, doesn't it?
Yes,
the stories that I've heard most recently was that it was political to try to blame it on the Wuhan market rather than on this laboratory that was handling various diseases. But we'll see.
We will see.
Now, to be fair, China did make mistakes in regards to what they reported and what they tried to hide early on. The doctor who initially figured this out was arrested. And he has since died of the coronavirus.
Right.
But they did try to hide things. So it wouldn't surprise me if China lied about something that maybe a government, somebody or other did to try to not be blamed. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't surprise me if that happened. But you have to be able to prove that happened.
Right. So to sort of take you through a timeline of this, the most recent information is that we've known for some time that it's definitely not lab created. Mm-hmm. That doesn't necessarily rule out the idea that maybe a lab had this particular strain and it infected somebody and they let it out.
Yeah, see, I actually heard opposite from what William Lane Craig heard. I heard that when I heard the rumor about it, is that it was a female technician who mishandled it and brought it home to her boyfriend. And he heard that it was a male technician who mishandled it and brought it home to his girlfriend.
Right. Well, I mean, this is my problem ultimately with William Lane Craig bringing this up, is that I know that he kind of paints his language as being not so certain about it, but I mean, honestly, like if I'm asked, hey, where did the COVID-19 come from? I'm gonna be like, I've got no fucking idea. I'm not gonna sit here and stipulate, oh, well, a male technician got it at work, brought it home to his girlfriend, and now they've spread it everywhere.
Well, that's the reported rumor,
right?
I mean, he's saying that's what he heard.
Right, but I mean, I wouldn't try.
But he also said that's what the news is saying here in the States. No, sir, that's what Fox News is saying here in the States. That is not what news is saying.
Right. But the science behind it is simply, we know that it is a naturally occurring virus. It was not created in a lab, but also the closest known relative of it is the SARS-CoV-2, which CoV-2, which is the COVID-19, is a bat virus named RATG13, which was kept at the Wuhan infectious disease place, one of their labs. And the problem with comparing the two and suggesting that it came out of that lab, though, was that it was sampled from a different province of China, the Yunnan province, where COVID-19 first appeared, and the level of the genome sequence divergence between the two strains is equivalent to about 50 years of evolutionary change.
An average of 50 years, and at minimum 20.
Right.
So we know it didn't come from that.
Right. And so we know that, it wasn't lab created. We know that it's not this RATG13, right, from that lab. And so there's no evidentiary support to suggest that this rumor is true right now.
Well, and when the head of bat coronavirus research at the Wuhan lab that they're talking about heard about this, she explained that when she first received samples from early COVID-19 patients, she immediately did a thorough investigation at her department and found no match between the viruses in her lab that they'd been working on, any of them, and COVID-19.
Right. So I get, that we need to investigate this and everything, but I don't know. I feel like the science is in on it, like the objective, like absolute kind of information on this virus. And I don't think that it's really possible that it came out of those labs. It still might be that some lab somewhere, like it might have gotten. Well, I mean,
it's possible that it came out of the lab. It's not possible that it was lab created. Right. So we know that's true. Is it possible that it came out of this lab? Sure. This lab lady could be lying because she doesn't want to get in trouble by the Chinese government. We don't know. But the thing is, we don't know. So making claims about it before having a thorough investigation and determining, which I don't know how we would do that when we're the United States and this is in China, but I don't know if there's some sort of global kind of authority that can go in here and do this investigation. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to work, but we don't know exactly how it started, where it came from specifically, but we do know it wasn't lab created.
Right. Well, I don't know. I'm fairly convinced by the science behind, comparing the SARS-CoV-2 and this RATG13. Like the differences there really don't suggest that it came from that lab.
It didn't come from that strain. It didn't come from that.
Well, no,
so
but I mean,
fine.
That's the closest equivalent to it.
That they've told us about.
Yeah.
There could be things that are not told because they hide things, and China does hide things, and that is well known. So I'm not thoroughly convinced, but I'm not also going to make claims or even say, well, so-and-so said blah, 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 because I don't know. And I think there needs to be an investigation into it. But I'm not thoroughly convinced, because them saying that they don't have any matching strains isn't science. That's just them saying it. So,
well, yeah, but it wasn't. But see, here's the thing: is that it wasn't the woman that was head of the bat research or whatever. She's not the one that did the research on the RATG13.
No,
comparing it.
I'm not talking about that.
Oh.
That's not what I was referring to. I was saying her saying that they don't have anything in their lab that matches COVID-19 is just her saying it. That's not science. So could she be lying? Could her bosses be lying? Could she have been told to lie? Sure. But that's all speculation.
It is. And there's a little evidence to suggest that maybe, we should be cautious about what they're telling us. But for me, it's the University of Sydney evolutionary virologist Edward Holmes up there talking about comparing the two virus strains and, showing that there's an equivalent average of 50 years.
Oh, sure. I totally believe that SARS-19 or that COVID-19 did not come from that RATG13.
Right. And
that's totally fine. I don't have an issue with that.
And I mean, I guess for me, like I feel pretty secure in saying, well, no, it didn't come from here, given the evidence that we already have. Now, that's not to say that I'm going to go around and say like, oh, she's telling the truth or anything like that. I'm just saying that until more evidence is given, like that they were hiding another COVID strain, in that particular lab or something like that, until you give me some other kind of evidence to shift, the evidence in that direction, I'm pretty solid. I feel solid in my position that it most likely didn't come from one of these labs.
Yeah, I'm not solid in that position. I am solid in the position that COVID-19 did not come from RATG13. I'm solid in that because that is actually scientific. But whether or not it came from this lab, I'm not solid in that position. I don't know. I'm not going to say it did, and I'm certainly not going to say it didn't because I don't know. And China has been known to lie, so could they have lied about it? Sure. Did they lie about it? I don't know. So I'm not convinced. I don't have a solid position on this either way, whether it came from the lab or didn't come from the lab. We know it wasn't lab created, and we know it didn't come from the RATG13. That's what we know. We don't know anything else.
Okay.
For certain. That's my position.
All right. Well, let us know what you guys think down below. Do you think China's lying to us again? Or do you think that we don't really know and we probably can't ever know? Let us know what you think down below.